And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, several years ago I had a chance to play Catacombs, a game I did not think would be good because it was a dexterity dungeon-based game. Sounded stupid, and I played it and loved it. Great little game. There was one big problem with the game, and that's that I thought the artwork was pretty horrific. But that's okay, I kept it anyway, I enjoyed it. However, they remade it, they kickstarted it, they made it bigger, better, and thankfully changed the artwork. This is actually quite big. Look at that. It's huge. So let's take a look at this game. You never heard of it before? Who cares? It's a pretty cool game. Here we go. Now this game is going to take place where players are going to make a deck of cards. One person's playing the Overlord, the bad guys, and he's going to set up kind of randomly a dungeon with different levels. And then each level of the dungeon, he's going to flip that level over, and it's going to tell him how many and what kind of monsters to put in. Sometimes it's going to let him choose. Sometimes it shows him question marks. Those question marks are monsters based on the big bad guy that's being used. Each big bad guy has a specific monster. He is then going to pick one of these boards. There are 3 of these boards in the game, and each board is double-sided. So, each board has different holes in it and different artwork on each side. So here's a board that's set up here, and inside this board, there's going to be holes. These holes are going to have these placed in them. Those are basically obstacles. He'll then set up whatever monsters are in that scenario, and he'll place them around the board, different kinds of monsters, okay? Then the heroes are going to place their guys, their hero folk, over here on the line all the way over here. Now you'll notice there's a wall around the board. That wall is not really part of the game. It's there just to keep the discs from flying off the table. So you can set it up. And these boards are pretty big. If you look at the old Catacombs boards, you'll notice that this was the size of them. The new boards dwarf them. You'll also notice that the artwork is better. Anyhow, so then players are going to take turns. The good guys are going to go first, and they're going to attack. Now, most of the time, your attacks are going to involve flicking your disc. So perhaps the wizard here, he's going to attack, and he hit this monster here. So that monster is going to take a hit point. Now this monster hit this monster, that doesn't do anything. However, if the wizard went, which would be a shot that I could never make, he would do a damage to each of those. Now each of the heroes and the villains have cards that show exactly what they do. And so they have special abilities and different things that they're going to take off based on the cards that they have. Each villain has a card which shows the kind of attacks they can do. It shows how many hit points they have and how much money they give you when you kill them. This here shows it's a regular attack. You flick your disc, you hit an enemy, you do a damage to them. Or he can do a move, which is flicking your disc, but if it hits someone, it doesn't do damage. And then he can shoot a flame shot. This game has ranged discs. Here's a flame ball, for example. So this guy, well, he's not actually on the board. Let's see if I can find that gentleman. Here he is. So he's here. So he put the flame next to him, and he can shoot at the wizard. That's a terrible shot. Shoot at the wizard again. A terrible shot. Bank shot. Okay, never mind. But the point here isn't my dexterity skills. It's to show off what he can do. So each monster has something different. For example, he can move and attack. Or he can shoot a ranged attack. There are little discs that have ranged attacks on them. And this particular ranged attack, you'll see it's blue. That shows that it stuns the enemy. So these little discs are shot, he'll shoot, and if he misses, so be it. In fact, some of the enemies are really small now. I do like this, how this is a rat here, and so it's harder for you to kill the rat because of how small it is on the board. Here's an orc who can attack, or he can do a ranged attack. Here is an armored beetle who can attack, or he can move, but if he touches you, you're poisoned. Poisoned is a new thing in this game, where you'll draw poison cards from the deck, and if the numbers on all your poison cards ever exceed your health, you're dead. Fortunately, you have ways to cure this poison. Anyway, back to these fun guys here. This guy here can attack, or he can shoot 3 fireballs. Boom, boom, boom. This guy here can attack or he can move, and if he hits you, you're stunned. This guy, the fire spirit, can attack, or they can attack and then transform into a flame wall. Some of the monsters have other sides that they can do things into. And so there's all sorts of different monsters in the game. Some of them are much more dangerous than others and have many more hit points than others. In fact, one of my favorite monsters is the gelatinous cube here, who is actually a cube, which you will flick on the board, and then he will rotate and do a different type of attack each turn. One of those attacks actually sending someone into their stomach and devouring them slowly. The heroes, though, are not left defenseless. Each of them has a hero card, and it will tell you any special attacks that they may have, like the chicken has a Feathers of Fury. The wizard comes with a whole pile of one-time use spells that he can use. The thief gets extra money when they kill an enemy. The elf here has 2 ranged attacks that they can use. The barbarian has a 4 attack rage he can use twice per game. And they each have cards to do this. There are also you can spend your money halfway through to buy new weapons that will show up. These weapons will show up, and like for example, this lets you attack, then do a range attack. And if the elf has it, attack, and then do a fire ranged attack. And then this shows you at the bottom of the card how many times you can use it. This one here you can use once per encounter. Sometimes they're one shot. Sometimes you can use them the whole game. And so there's lots of different cards in this game. Here's like for example, the Berserker Battle Axe that he can use, which will once per game he can do 4 attacks. These are all the different wizards. He can shoot an ice blast or put a shield out to defend himself. However, they're not the only one. These are like the main bad guys. This shows which monsters they show up with at the end. This is their mercenary. That's if the question marks show up in cards, what they bring out. And they also will have some special abilities sometimes. And it will show, like here's all the different attacks that the Lich Lord can do. He can move, then bring back a skeleton from the dead, then attack. Move, bring back someone from the dead. Or he can move and then fire. And then he's also joined by his host of people. Medusa here her name is Shargaila, whatever. She can move and then make a stunning attack, or she can do 2 poison attacks, or another different type of attack. And there's lots of different attacks. That's Petrify, by the way. There's lots of different types of attacks. Fortunately, there's a sheet that explains what all the attacks are. It also explains how to put the stickers on, which takes a long time, just for the record. So, you make it through the room alive, the good guys do, without dying. They're going to be taking hit points on their sheets. Each player will have a sheet that they keep track of their life points on, and they have all their different weapons and equipment on these. If you die, you're out of the game, but there is a way to be brought back from the dead halfway through. But if you all survive to the final room, then if you kill the main bad guy, you win, or if he kills the heroes, he wins. Catacombs is dexterity based, obviously flicking discs around and such, and you would think that doesn't match a dungeon crawl, but it does an excellent job at that. Flicking a barbarian into the fray makes sense. He would run up and attack, and then he's vulnerable to other attacks, while the elf can do ranged attacks and stay back, and the wizard has all those spells that many of them are one time per game, so they have to know when they're going to heal somebody, when they're going to shoot the fireball. In fact, when you're picking the different characters for this game, I think you'd be kind of remiss to not take the wizard. You don't have to play the wizard, but have someone play the wizard. On the other hand, they had the 4 characters from the original game, which were the thief, the elf, the wizard, and the barbarian. They added 2 new characters to this one, a skeleton, which is pretty cool because he can't be poisoned, and so that's pretty neat. He can run around because the poison attacks are a pain in the neck. And then the chicken, which is hilarious, but in gameplay, his special thing is he can move 4 times. Well, that's okay, but moving 4 times without attacking is basically running around like a chicken with your head cut off. So, I don't know about that character, but still fun, and there's an expansion for this game, which hopefully we'll talk about in the future, that adds even more characters and more monsters. But there's no lack of diversity of monsters here. Lots of monsters, fire monsters, poison monsters, monsters that petrify, undead monsters, the gelatinous cube, and the monsters get stronger, and the room piles as you play are set up so that the monsters get more difficult. Each room gets more challenging to the heroes, but not so challenging. Almost every game I've ever played of this, the heroes have made it to the final room. They've not always survived the final room, but they've almost always made it to the final room, and everything else is kind of a precursor to that. How many gold coins can we get? How much health are we going into that final room? And the bad guy, he can try to play pretty hard against the heroes. And yes, when it comes down to it, if you're really good at flicking discs, you will be better than someone who's really good at crunching numbers in their head. Okay, that's just the way it works. But it's still fun. And there's going to be those amazing shots that you make. And the wall now keeps them from flying onto the floor and having the game pause while everyone looks for a disc. And it is bigger. And bigger in this sense is better. Having a bigger board gives you less chance of, oh, I went off the board again. Whenever you go off the board, that's it. You don't lose any hit points, but you just come back where you went off, and it happens a lot. Well, here, it happens a little bit less because the board is so big. I like the smaller discs. I like how the rats are tiny discs. They're hard to hit. That makes sense. At the same time, they don't do a ton of damage, but they can poison you, which is fantastic. So I personally prefer to play this as the dungeon master, with the bad guys, but as the heroes, it's fun too. Everyone's involved. The game plays very quickly. The game itself is over an hour long, but I mean, you're constantly, okay, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn, flick, 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 and everyone's watching everything. Each hero usually has their chance to shine. If you've not played Catacombs before, then I certainly recommend trying this one out. It is a lot of fun. If you have the old Catacombs, throw it away. No, don't throw it away. Give it to someone who doesn't care about the artwork and get the new version. It is honestly that much better. Love this game. Lots of fun. Certainly one that I can't wait to play again. Catacombs. Dice Tower Judgment into my collection.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.